Staying with us, and Bill O'Reilly in a personal story segment tonight, another body language exposition where we find out what people are really feeling behind the words. With us now once again, body language expert Tonya Reiman. All right, now we're going to start with something that I never see this. We just picked this up. The President Bush the elder is giving a speech about one of his sons, the governor of Florida, Jeb Bush, who lost an election. Let's roll the tape.
True measure of a man is how you handle victory and also defeat. I can do it. Yeah. Well, the moral of the story is we love this guy.
All right, that took place in Tallahassee. Now, Jeb Bush lost the gubernatorial race more than a decade ago. So we're going, he's still upset about it. What did that tell you?
Well, the first thing I noticed was he does this, and what that shows is that he has good feelings towards his son. He's taking partial credit for it. He's pulling it into him when he's talking. He's here, the hands are like this. They're coming towards him, which shows that he feels good about his son. He has no sadness about it. I mean, he's sad overall about this, but he feels good in how his son handled this. I also noticed that when he does the pause, he takes two hands, he puts them down. See what he's doing right now?
Right.
And that's his way of kind of regaining his composure, getting some strength up to handle the next piece that he wants to talk about.
But he's really broken up about
Yes.
an election that happened more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
I'm, why would he be that verklept, as they say?
Yeah. He was incredibly emotional. The only thing I can think of is that, things are bubbling up now. He feels maybe there's things going on inwardly, and they're coming out. He's being very emotive.
I think that he's watched his other son, the president, take the beating of a lifetime.
Absolutely.
I think that has something to do with this.
Yeah. This has got to be painful for him in that regard. He's watching one son who's just being beaten.
And Jeb is on his way out,
Yeah.
but Jeb did, had his term. He did okay. There was no problem down in Florida. I mean, he goes on to where he goes on to. But when I saw that, I said, well, there's got to be something behind this, because usually people don't get that emotional.
Yeah, he
about
was very emotional.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed also Jeb handled it very well when he came over. He patted his father on the shoulder, which was very warm. And normally, the funny thing is, normally pats come parent-child. In this case, it was child-parent.
But remember, he's 81 now.
Yeah, absolutely.
The elder Bush, and he's being taken care of by his son. Look, whatever you think about the Bush family, they have a very close relationship.
It was nice to see the way he patted him, especially because it was almost a miniature hug. It was very emotional.
Right. All right, now let's go to another former president, Jimmy Carter. Roll the tape.
Yes, Mr. Carter, thank you for making me a Republican. Because of your incompetence in handling the Iranians with stagflation, and you're cozying up with every dictator, thug, and Islamic terrorist there is. But more importantly, I find it to be vile because you're black as heart. It's heart because you're an anti-Semite. And let me explain why I think you're a bigot, a racist, and an anti-Semite. No holds
I think,
barred.
Caller, that the name calling is fine, is enough.
Fine, that was interesting.
What'd you think?
That was a very harsh interview. I mean, initially you can see he's smiling, and that looks like a real smile. The minute he starts hearing exactly what's being told, you see a look of sadness cross right across his eyebrows.
Is it anger or sadness?
No, it's sadness. It's a look of concern and sadness. Suddenly he realizes what's being said, and the eyebrows come down, pointed. And that's the look of sadness. And that's a genuine look of sadness. He's very upset that this is being said about him. I also noticed at a certain point he does what's known as a tongue protrusion, which is a sign of anxiety.
There.
Is he doing it? No,
Letterman did that
looks
all
over.
the time when I was talking to him.
Yeah, that's a sign of anxiety. He also tends to look down a lot, which is his way of accessing his emotions. He's really feeling this. That was the tongue protrusion. Right. And then he shifts his body language as well, which is, another way of saying, I'd like to change what's going on. I'd like to change the conversation.
But he didn't get angry.
No anger whatsoever. He handled this very well. If you look at his body, there's no movement in the legs. His hands have not changed. He's very calm during this interview, which is surprising because it was a very harsh interview.
That tells you he has confidence in his position.
Absolutely,
as
he does.
misguided as they are. All right, now the big one, the Danny Devito View exposition. Roll it.
I didn't go after, numb. I thought it was.
President.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, the guy who.
You're waking up.
All right, so what's this all about?
Well, this is really interesting because 3 of the 4 hosts are very closed. Their legs are crossed, their arms are crossed, they're holding themselves. Whereas Rosie O'Donnell is very open to Danny DeVito. She's loving this. She's enjoying this. The rest of them don't seem that thrilled with it.
No,
If you look
Barbara
at
looks like she's going to throw up.
Right. She turns around and she gives that look of, you know, I don't want to use disgust, but she's not happy with this, the way it's going. And then the other 2 are having looks of what I would call sarcasm. When you see one cheek is being raised up, I see a great deal of sarcasm. And then I also see pursed lips, which indicate there's a distasteful...
Now, what about DeVito himself? Intoxicated here?
Oh, absolutely inebriated and
yeah, he's out
enjoying
of his mind.
it.
All right, so he doesn't really care what he's saying at this point.
No, he's all over the place. I mean, the way he goes and sits on Rosie's lap, he's very comfortable. And Rosie is very comfortable with him. You can see this. You know, the fact that she's willing to embrace him like that.
Now,
she's
most
very comfortable with it.
inebriated people act that way when they get blotto like that?
Well, you know what's funny? Typically, it's not that easy to read a person who's inebriated because normally their gestures don't match their words. They're usually a little bit off. He's doing fairly well. You can tell as
Maybe he's had a lot of practice.
Yes, maybe. Or perhaps, you know, he did sleep a little bit of it off and it was slight inebriation.
All right, Tonya, always a pleasure to have you on a program. Very interesting as always. Thank you very much. In a moment, what you can do to help American military people wounded in the war on terror. New York Yankees star Johnny Damon will be here next.
It's the season to wow, and our pledge is to help you wow them with gifts like an Xbox 360.
With a huge selection of high-def games for them and easy-to-use parental controls for you, Xbox 360 takes gaming to